I think he's a slightly better Thomas Burdick. He's an even more of a nearly man than Burdick because he gets to the finals a bit more consistently.
Like, a lot of people talk about, it's a steely determination and blah, blah, blah. He's just got a really good self-discipline regime where he knows how to keep himself healthy. He knows how to look after his body and I think his mind to some degree. We want to see someone like Benoit Paire who gets pissed every weekend, rocks up to a tournament, plays a few matches, and every now and then does quite well.
Yeah,
that's what we want.
Where are the guys having red wine in between games breaks? Like, come on, what's going on here? Yeah, welcome back to the Getting Grip podcast, again from opposite sides of the world. Only one thing to talk about this week, and that is England in the World Cup. Come on, lads. 6-2. Whoever doubted us? Nah, of course.
Well, us.
Yeah, well, we do. We build them up and then we just absolutely destroy them when there's like a hint of vulnerability there or weakness. No,
Hang
of
on
course.
a second, Ben. This is the tennis podcast, not the football podcast.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's not really much going on in the tennis world. Some guy from Eastern Europe claiming his sixth end of year finals, equaling
Sixth end of year
Federer.
finals, yeah.
Oh, that was one record Federer had. Well, he has the 8 Wimbledon, but again, Djokovic might get that as well. He had this one,
yes, he might.
and now it hasn't been taken from him, but it's been equaled by Novak, of course, who you predicted. I mean, I would have predicted him, but I didn't want to be boring and choose the same person. So, yeah.
You would have predicted him, would you?
I mean, who else was I going to predict? I've
Any of
predicted
the
Taylor
other
Fritz,
seven players? I mean, that's just offensive, Ben.
Yeah. Well, we did say it was unpredictable, which it can be, but this year has gone to form pretty much. Even with the finalists, I guess like Ruud he seeded like 3 or something. I mean, he's pretty highly ranked. Even though, I mean, not many of us would have given him much of a chance, I guess. Like, as we said, he is like the nearly man, really, isn't he? He's consistent at getting to the latter stages, but he just is not quite getting over that line. What is it this year? He got to the final of the French Open, lost to Nadal. He did kind of get thrashed, and then he got to the final of the US Open, and then Alcaraz, even though he was a little bit tired, still managed to beat him in like 4 sets. So,
not that I'm a fan of comparing current players to old players. I am going to do it now anyway. And apologies to the man I'm going to compare Casper Ruud to, but I'm starting to think he's a bit of a Thomas Burdick. What do you reckon?
I think he's a slightly better Thomas Burdick. He's an even more of a nearly man than Burdick because he gets to the finals a bit more consistently. You know, Burdick was like, he'd get to the semis, we do really well to get to the semis, and then he'd lose to like one of the big 4. That's normally what happened.
Well, that was it. It was always the big 4 that ended up, and one of the big 4,
Murray.
2 of those would be in the final. Yeah, and
it was always Murray.
And if it was Murray in the final, you were like, well, we know who's won. It's not Murray.
Yeah. Oh God.
Except
I don't know.
2016.
I don't know if Ruud will ever. I think I would give him more of a chance of winning a slam than Burdick, but probably mainly because these big 4 are they're on their way out, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's the main reason. I reckon, like, luck of the draw genuinely would be a scenario for him. Yeah.
But the longer it goes on, like, I mean, he's mid-20s now, right? So you don't really want to leave it too many more years, otherwise the pressure's even greater when you get to these.
It becomes
finals.
a bit of a curse. This is what we worried about Murray with Wimbledon for a very long time because he kept getting nearly there, and then the year before he won it, he got to the final, and he had that famous breakdown of tears and stuff like that. But people were like, "Oh no, a curse is setting in." Like Manchester City in the Champions League, like they're never going to win it because now they can't win it, sort of thing. It's very surprising. That was a football reference for anyone that's listening that's a bit confused there. Yeah, sorry about that.
Well, Murray wasn't he? He was 25 when he won the US Open, something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was what we consider that quite old. Well, at that time, it's not so much now, but because it felt like he kept getting so close, it felt like it took forever. I mean, 25 is still quite young, really. But these other guys winning it at like, in the early 20s, when Nadal winning it when he was 19 or whatever. So yeah, you don't really want to leave it too much longer. But yeah, at least he's putting himself there. He's putting himself in position. But again, maybe it's just a little bit of a belief kind of thing, especially when he comes up against guys like Novak or Rafa, like guys he's kind of idolized as a kid growing up. It's hard not to play the man somewhat as opposed to playing the ball. But it looks like, yeah, he's improved his backhand a little bit. Obviously, his forehand is the main weapon. Like, he always tries to run around it, a bit like Rafa does. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe the serve as well, perhaps, could be strengthened a little bit. Just little tweaks to get him a few more free points might help him in these kind of bigger matches where he's not just like grinding away all the time. Because there were quite a few long points against Novak. Even that like penultimate point was like 30 shots or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just don't think that's going to work against those other kind of baseline players. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. Did you see much of the final? Don't know how you kind of saw things. What your views are on that?
Well, no, I thought it was a very electric final. The level of tennis. I'm going to say that tennis won throughout this tournament.
Classic
because
cliche.
yeah, is that cliche? It's that commentator thing, isn't it? But no, genuinely, I thought the final was a really high quality. Like Ruud was playing like someone who was, who could have won. And Novak was just, well, he was being Novak. He was incredible flexibility, making shots he has no right to get to. And yeah, just keeping the pressure on by being that wall that he is. I don't know if there's a huge amount more than that. I think it was a tightly fought affair simply for those reasons, because it kept swinging back and forth a little bit, the momentum between games, which I found quite interesting. So I don't think anyone actually to sort of cap that. I don't think anyone really had the momentum, which was quite nice to see. Or to a counterpoint, they both had the momentum. It's hard to really tell. But no, I think it was a nice way to round off the whole tournament as everyone had been on pretty good form. Arguably, Rafa hadn't necessarily been on great form throughout the World Tour finals, but everyone else, like Taylor Fritz, for example, played some of the best tennis of his life, I would say. Gave us real cause to wonder if he could be taking that crown in the earlier stages. So, yeah, I think it was a very good tournament, and as it should be, with the biggest pay packet in tennis that it is. $4.7 million to win that one.
It's
not even a five-setter.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah. It's not like Novak needed the money anyway.
Oh no. He's probably happy about it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, none of them need it, do they? Like if you're that level, like you've already had a decent amount of prize money earnings at this point, and you live off
the sponsorships as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The merchandising. That's all you need.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it probably helped Novak, like we said before, that he didn't have loads of tournaments this year. Kept him fresh for the end of year. But then he did kind of try and make the point that he's played a full schedule before and won these finals. Like he won it a few years in a row, didn't he, when it was in London?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know. He just looks after himself really well, doesn't he? God damn it! God damn these professional athletes looking after themselves.
I think that's one of his superpowers. Like a lot of people talk about, it's a steely determination and blah blah blah. He's just got a really good self-discipline regime where he knows how to keep himself healthy, knows how to look after his body and I think his mind to some degree.
He's just really boring. That's what it is.
Yeah, we want to see someone like Benoit Paire who gets pissed every weekend, rocks up to a tournament, plays a few matches, and every now and then does quite well.
Yeah,
that's what we want.
Where are the guys having red wine in between games breaks? Like, come on, what's going on here? Let's keep it loose. Yeah. No, he's just yeah. That's why people call him machine, isn't it? Because he's just everything is like on point. Same with his actual like tennis style as well. Like, there's not really any weakness there. There's no like crazy shot, but like when he's firing, he can hit any shot in any direction. Like that backhand down the line, especially. There was a few that he crunched against Ruud. That's when you know he's feeling it. But yeah, like when we talk about some of the other the other guys, we won't call them nearly men, but we'll they're the sort of younger guys. The the match that interested me was the battle of the, if we call them the hotheads, it was Tsitsipas against Rublev.
Okay,
Didn't
yeah.
disappoint. I think when we were talking about Stefanos's parents, well, yeah, you obviously made that point in the last episode about kind of needing to maybe move on a little bit and bring someone else in, and his mum was getting very wound up, and then that
Yeah.
seemed to kind of like cause an argument with his dad or something, and then that distracted him, and then it was just pandemonium. And then you got Rublev on the other side, who's again, he's starting to keep a bit more of a lid on things, but like he's never far away from losing his, I don't want to say the word, but losing his mind on court. And like against Djokovic, he completely lost it. Like, but I don't know. Did you watch much of that match? Like, it was entertaining at least. It was a bit.
I didn't watch a huge amount of that match. Tsitsipas Rublev. Again, you knew it was going to be chaos. You knew it was going to be entertaining. I saw some of the highlights and whatnot, but I think for me, like as you said, Rublev is starting to keep a lid on things a little bit better. I think he's genuinely a player who can sometimes benefit from the I don't want to call it excitement. I don't want to call it frustration. It's sort of like a temper, and sometimes that can heighten him a little bit, give him that extra power, give him that extra like fizz to the way he's playing. But obviously, sometimes it can lead him to absolutely lose his mind. But loads of players have had that in the past before. Like even Federer in the really early days of his career had exactly the same thing. Sort of 18, 19, 20. Like he'd be breaking rackets and stuff like that. Murray as well. Like he's always screaming and shouting, and sometimes that fires him up. So some people it works for, and some people it doesn't. Stefanos Tsitsipas, again, I want to be careful. I'm not saying that I dislike him. I'm very clear about that. It's just I dislike the way he portrays himself on the tennis court a lot of the time, because it doesn't do a great job for everyone else. But I think for him, he does need to move on, because whatever it is isn't working. And if you can't keep a lid on it in those matches, then you're never going to make it to the deeper world stages consistently. So my concern with him is he needs to fire his parents. It sounds really weird, but
you're fired from being my parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree really. Like, I know it's you want to have that loyalty, because he obviously did have a fair bit of success quite early on as well, like when he made deep runs in the Australian Open and final of the French and all that sort of stuff. But sometimes you got to take a step back and try and kind of like be honest with how things are. How can you get better, especially now that we've kind of at the end of the season? Now's a good time to kind of take a step back and have a look at things and kind of think what things could be changed, even if it's, I don't know, keeping his dad around in like training and stuff, but then bringing in the coach to kind of help with the training and obviously come along to tournaments and stuff. Like, he doesn't have to completely like just do away with it. Maybe have a little like, I don't know, transition period or whatever, where he brings some new coaches in or new coach in, and then I don't know, see how it goes from there. But he can't carry on like the way it's going at the moment. It's just, I don't know, mentally it's not doing him any good.
I'm not so worried about his tennis. I'll be quite honest with it. Like, he's still a phenomenal tennis player, and I don't necessarily think that maybe the focuses are wrong in that regard, but there is something wrong in terms of the mental focus. And when you've got a scenario like that, you have to look at it like, why can't I keep my head in the game? Maybe it's partially to do with the team behind him. Like, you're going to have different people influencing how you make decisions. That's part of it. Yeah. So, and also, I'm not entirely sure. We've all seen the Tsitsipas dad on TV enough to know that I don't think he'd cope with being, one of a pair of coaches. He'd have to be the coach or not at all.
Okay, maybe it needs to be a clean break then.
That's like asking Tony Nadal to sort of half do something.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's not the case. They believe in their own teaching abilities. I would say.
Well, Rafa gave him the academy job. Try and keep him happy is like, Well, I don't want to kind of just get rid of him completely and not just like not give him anything to do. You can take care of the academy. It's fine. You can do that.
Yeah.
Carlos, come in. With Rublev, yeah, like again, he has showed a bit of progress in terms of like staying in matches mentally and stuff. Like he was a set down against Tsitsipas, but again, he still for me got a way to go because I know you said like Federer had his tantrums and Murray would always shout at his box and stuff, but Rublev like his are another level. He just loses his mind completely. Like he just like tearing rackets apart, just like screaming, and it happens so regularly as well. Like once it does go, it's like almost every point he loses, he just like loses his mind. Like against Novak, that was kind of like I think that was the point that kind of showed that he's not like fully there with it yet. Because against some of the other players, he's kind of he's been a bit more stable, but against the top guys, the very top couple of players, that's where his challenge really is. And maybe it's a belief thing as well, because I know he's shouting at himself probably in a way that he's trying to show that, oh yeah, I can be better than this. But maybe there is underneath still like a little bit of a lack of belief against the real top players, or maybe it's, I don't know, a bit of like a defense mechanism or something. I don't know exactly what's going through his mind, but yeah, again, because it is frustrating because he's like 25 now, so he should be starting to get a bit of a lid on these things. And again, I don't know who's in his coaching team and stuff, but maybe he needs to change as well. Like maybe he doesn't, I don't know, he's too comfortable with these guys, and he needs someone who's really going to respect. Like you remember when Murray brought in like Lendl, and then he sort of cut out a lot of that back chatting and all that sort of stuff. Maybe he needs a kind of some sort of figure like that to come in and really, someone who's not going to like shout at, who he actually kind of respects. I don't know what you think to that.
It's no bad idea to have that fire, but as you say, you're quite right. Like having someone who can. Oh, it's tough to say. So having someone that can calm you a little bit or focus you a little bit, it definitely helps. And I'm going to bring this actually to a little bit of coaching experience I have, even with just sort of junior tennis players that start to compete and stuff like that. When you're teaching a kid to reset, the idea of recovery in a point, for example, you get back to the baseline, sort of make sure you're in a best position to reach all the balls, etc., like that. That's really basic, but it comes in at a mental level as well. Say you lose a point, you can't let that run away in your head. You have to reset and go, okay, that's all in the past now. I've got to come to the moment in this point and then keep going and stuff like that. That's something as well I think Novak Djokovic does extremely well. Like he can get very upset with himself, but he knows how to. You can almost see it on his face sometimes because he'll have the emotion. You'll see it on court. He might scream at his box or something like that. And then suddenly his face will go stone cold. And then you can see that he's ready for that next point. And he's reset. He's reset himself emotionally to be able to then sort of move on to the next point. And you get this with loads of people. And I actually had a couple of people that I coach managed to take this into other parts of their lives as well. Like they literally just thought to themselves, they start to get upset with something. One of them at school, for example, and they said, "Oh, I just remember what you said about resetting," and I was just like, "Yeah, that's exactly it. It's not something that you do in one particular part of tennis. It's an emotional response, and you're not going to do that unless you have someone that you respect telling you that." As you say, Lendl with Murray, and this is why I think. If Murray were to ever coach Kyrgios, I think that would happen for Kyrgios.
Yeah, it's almost it's knowing that you can control how you react to things, and I guess it's a lot of the time it's a pattern of behavior almost that that has to be changed. Knowing that you can decide how you react to things is quite a big thing. Like I remember when I first kind of read about that, I was like, oh, you just kind of think you just react instantly to things, and like that's just how it is, and you can't change it. But actually, like you can take it almost like a pause and almost step back, like mentally from what's going on, or like you said, like reset from something. And these guys should be, all these top guys should at some point, or right now, be working with a psychologist or looking at all of these kind of things. Really, if they're not, then like that's just like that's their own fault, really, because they've got, as we said, they've got like these top guys have got all the money that they need. They can employ like whoever they need for whatever purpose. So they should be working with these kind of people anyway. And I'd be surprised if Djokovic didn't at some point work with a psychologist or continues to, because again, it's like we say, it's a mental game as much as a physical game. It's more of a cliche now, but it really is. Like once you get to the real top level, there's hardly anything in it in terms of talent, like nothing at all really. It's between the ears, and it's just finding little strategies that can help you as you go through a match and kind of like the difficulties that you face. Let us know what you think about these different players and their kind of mentalities, and what could be improved in their game, things like that. And if you have enjoyed it, give it a follow on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and then on YouTube, like it, share it around, and subscribe if you haven't. And we will see you in the next one.